Hello and welcome to the Scrimshaw Show. This is the third Scrimshaw Show I've recorded in the last 27 hours. I had an interesting conversation with my buddy Nathaniel Arfin yesterday on the show about Ontario politics, the fact that the Ontario NDP just definitely straight up lied about their fundraising and their war chest. The politics of safe supply, especially in a political context where drug policy seems to not be working out well for people, and talking about the chance of early Ontario election, I have decided to tap in Ben Oates, who came on the show to talk Chrysler Freeland and Chaos Week. We're doing a fun draft gimmick today, because I come from the Bill Simmons school of draft everything for the purposes of content. We're drafting 6 things, 3 big moments from 2024 in Canadian politics, and 3 predictions for what big moments or what'll happen or what'll be the big moments of 2025. It's a dumb gimmick to talk about the year in review and make some predictions. Again, I come from the Simmons school of just make everything a gimmick, make everything a draft, gamify everything. It's better content. And no, we're not allowed to pick, Trump won or Trump's getting sworn in. Yeah, we fucking know. Let's make this somewhat interesting. Ben Oates, the Newfie correspondent. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, Evan. How are you doing? Happy New Year to yourself and all your listeners. Good to be back on. I seem to be a bit of a harbinger of chaos. You bring me in when shit's hitting the fan.
In fairness, I bring you in. I bring you in for 2 reasons. 1, I like talking to you, and
Thanks.
2, I don't like. So I had David Coletto on the show. Wow, that was like a month ago now. The Coletto interview feels both 10 months ago and also last week, because like he and I talked. I asked him a question at one point in the interview, like, would the Liberal Party be in a better place if they had just listened to me and gotten rid of Justin Trudeau after the St. Paul's by-election loss? And he was like, he kind of hemmed and hawed and said probabilistic, I think probabilistically, and he didn't want to like officially say it, because he doesn't, he's a pollster, that he's a data guy, I get it. But he basically said yes.
Yeah.
And a week after we recorded that interview, the Chrysler Freeland resignation happened. And like, I don't want to say it, but I feel like Coletto's answer has gone from a probably yes to an abso-fucking-lutely yes. Speaking of Coletto, read his thing on the everybody should read his thing. He posted on Abacus's site about his like the 4-quadrant sort of political assessment. Instead of the sort of default normal left-right axis, the sort of 4-quad assessment. It's very good work. It's very impressive. I've been Coletto and I don't know Coletto's politics, and people are convinced he's a conservative, even though he's like an urbanist biker. So I don't really know why that, for some reason, codes is like Polyev conservative to my Twitter mentions, but whatever. But he and I look at the world quite similarly, and we find a lot of the same questions interesting. Which is part of why I'm a fan of his and part of why I wanted to have him on the podcast. But I swear I had a point in bringing all of this up. It was a month ago we recorded that, and I love that interview. Love Coletto. Hope to have him back on in the spring at some point. But like that feels like an interview. This is a conversation.
Right. Not fair.
Those are 2 different things, and I like conversations on this show.
I do too.
It's I'm a big fan of the Ringer's movie podcast. And I'm very happy that Amanda's back from maternity leave. I know you don't give a single shit about this, but I did just straight up rip off one of their ideas for the 3rd of the podcast I've recorded. They were doing like a Mount Rushmore thing for like movies and stuff, and I just like straight up ripped off the concept for a podcast that's coming out next week on Formula One. Because I am a shameless cultural vulture who will steal a good idea if it comes my way. Do you have any? Oh, have you watched Pierre Poilievre on Jordan Peterson or any of the clips?
I watched some of the clips, some of the big stuff. It's been Christmas and stuff like that, and being on, chronically online is not to sound like every self-help guru ever, but it's bad for the brain. So I've been kind of decoupled for a little bit, just kind of taking a couple of weeks off, and but I'm starting to click back in today, and I watched bits and pieces of it, and nothing too surprising. Some people on Twitter are falling over themselves, saying, "Oh my God, he's into him, he's Canadian." I mean, whatever. Bits and pieces of it. What'd you make of it, Evan?
Oh, I have engaged with exactly 0.0 seconds, and I will engage with 0.0 seconds of it. I don't care. My thing with Jordan Peterson is that he's not interesting enough, good or bad, for any of us to care. This would have been 2017, I think. I was getting a haircut, and I didn't pay for data at that point, and the place I got my haircut didn't have Wi-Fi. And so the only thing I could do while I was waiting to like 10 minutes before my barber was available was read the Ottawa Sun.
Oh, lucky you.
I know. But so I sort of like read the sports section, was like, fuck, ran out of stuff. And so I'm just kind of sitting there. And so I opened the paper and I opened the news section, and they were quoting Jordan Peterson in an article about Kathleen Wynne's electoral chances. And that was the moment something clicked into me about Jordan Peterson, which is I don't understand why people treat him like, whatever you think of his like actual psychology work, right? The actual like clinical work that he's ever done, or the sort of like writings, the books he's written on his actual area of like subject expertise, right? I've heard conflicting things from people who've read it. Some people like it, some people think it's sort of like hackneyed and obvious. He's not smart enough or interesting enough that he should be giving electoral prediction in a national newspaper chain, because this wasn't an article just for the Ottawa Sun, it was for the Sun chain of papers. It's like, and that's been my thing with Peterson this entire time. When he was on his like all meat diet and living in Moscow, I didn't give a shit. When he faced, professional consequence for, telling people to go kill themselves, I didn't give a shit. When he was getting a National Post column to complain that he's being canceled, I thought it was ludicrous, but I also didn't care because he's not that important. And the only reason I'm even animated by this is Robin Urbach of I think she's of the Globe now, formerly CBC and Nat Poe, being like, well, liberals should have learned the lesson from Kamala not doing Joe Rogan. One, the idea that Kamala not doing Rogan actually mattered in the slightest, there's no evidence for this. We've all just decided that it mattered because people like easy narratives. Mm-hmm. But one, there's no guarantee that she would have done well on Rogan. Two, there's no way of knowing of that counterfactual that we've all just assumed is true. But three, Jordan Peterson isn't Joe Rogan. Rogan is a mostly apolitical podcast that sometimes talks about politics, right? But he talks about UFC cards, and he has scientists, and he has, adventure, mountain people who have gone to Everest or whatever. Like, years and years ago, I remember my brother showing my mother a ex-Scientologist, like a somebody who had escaped the Church of Scientology, going on Rogan. And that's why people listen to Rogan, so that when he has a Trump or a JD Vance or whoever on the show, they'll listen. But it's not a political podcast. Peterson is just like explicitly a conservative who talks about conservative politics. It's not the same fucking thing in the slightest. We don't have a Rogan, in part because of Canadian culture, because we just allow American culture to subsume us, and because anybody who would be talented enough to be a Canadian Rogan moved to the U.S. 25 years ago.
Or counterpoint to that, not counterpoint, but like, here's the thing. I think most Canadians are like you. They don't care enough.
I mean, you need to give people a reason to care.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and the thing about a sort of like cultural product like a Rogan or whatever is it has to be one, you can just get sort of like quote unquote absurd numbers because there's 350 million Americans, right?
Yeah.
So like, 20 million or 20 million uniques or 10 million uniques or even 5 million uniques an episode on average, well, that's 500,000 Canadians, which obviously I think most people would like lose their shit over. Yeah. But that's not, but in a Canadian context, like that's not that impressive. And the other thing is that we do have a talent drain problem, which is that if you're actually ambitious and want to go into entertainment or want to go into sort of culture, most of the time you move to LA. And like, you can't, if you're going to talk about American stuff and build an American audience, then that's just what you're going to do. But you're also then not going to be a super great place for Trudeau. And I mean, frankly, the other like very real problem is that Justin Trudeau would suck in that like kind of context. Even like put aside the fact that Rogan doesn't like Trudeau, right? But if you had a Rogan clone who was sort of like ambivalent on Trudeau would suck in that format. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
He was bad on Erickson Smith's podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think this hangs on a slightly bigger topic, which is something we've seen past 10 years now, I guess. Jesus Christ, 2025. Is people have gone from, being apathetic or like they're not really giving a shit about politics to having an active desire. And this is completely just a personal opinion. I can't back up with any data, but it seems like the general population has gone from, being politically apathetic or like somewhat engaged and like okay with the standard commercial politician shtick that we get from the Trudeaus, but not even just Trudeau's, Harper's and Kamala Harris and to wanting to be entertained by their leaders.
Well, Nikki Vale just quote. Sorry to interrupt. Nikki Vale just quote tweeted me calling my tweet about the Rogan thing stupid. This is the same person who completely misunderstood my point and vaguely threatened to sue me on completely because he's too stupid to read. So
who's this?
Nick Kuvalis, Doug Ford's pollster.
Oh, good. Yeah. Great.
Also, again, Nick, if you think I'm so stupid, you're free to unfollow. I'm just saying.
Hey, this is actually a weird segue into what's going on. Like this, people have been given and this ties perfectly into prediction number 1 for 2025, Mr. Scrimshaw.
If you would like to do my segue for me, you're free to.
But yeah, people want to be entertained by not only their politicians but also their politics, right? And that's frustrating and it's weird and it's absolutely counterproductive. But I think the center left has to embrace that, which is going to be hard. It's going to be awkward. It's going to lead to a lot of quote unquote cringe messaging from some of our party leaders. We're seeing this, like we kind of saw this with Jagmeet Singh and the whole like him, squaring off against some random trucker dude. Like, yeah, that was objectively fucking hilarious to watch. Good on him, but like. That's what people want. What people bite into. It's. I
don't think it's that people want entertaining. I think it's that people want authentic. Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's a better way of putting it. Authentic.
And the thing is that like, the moments when Stephen Harper was most popular, right? Like I'll never forget when he went on stage at the NAC and did. I think Yo-Yo Ma was somehow involved in this. The details are fuzzy, and also I've started drinking. I don't really care. to deny this fact. But like, I think it was like Yo-Yo Ma on the cello and him at piano, and he's singing "With a Little Help from My Friends." And like, this man has never been more authentically himself than that moment, right?
Yeah.
And like, people like authenticity. People like politicians. There's a reason that Nate Erskine-Smith, God, I can't believe I've already brought up Nate twice in this podcast. I'm really not trying to, but there's a reason that he has built a following. There's a reason why, Nate Erskine-Smith beat Yazir Naqvi to second place in Ontario Liberal leadership race when Nate has been a, backbench federal MP, and Yazir Naqvi, literally was Ontario's Attorney General.
Exactly.
Like,
right?
Authenticity is the currency. And the thing about Polyev is that he's an asshole, but he seems like he's authentically an asshole.
Well, yeah. Point taken and agreed with. He's authentically an asshole. I think Pierre Poilievre is peddling this kind of weird, great value brand of like normieism, in the sense like not to sound like Sean Fraser, but like, if you ever want to laugh, if you ever want to just really feel a bit better about yourself, just go watch some of Pierre Poilievre's like videos from about a year ago. He's after like cleaning up his act a little bit, in the sense that he's being he's talking less about his own ideals and more just attacking Trudeau, which has been working out very well for him. But if you go back, like, there's a bunch of video of him like groping a wooden beam, being like, well, the carpenter shaved his hands, or talking about like, the House of Commons, the green of the feet. Like, he's a weird cat, right? Weird cat. But he's more authentic, to your point, than Trudeau, right? Who's very polished, very, disciplined in message to an extent, very much a product of the early 2000s and 2010s, right?
And also like, Trudeau has looked for the last 2-something years like his head is up his own ass, right? Like, he is completely divorced from reality. The fact that he hasn't spoken as of when this podcast is going out to the public, absolutely fucking insane.
Yep.
Like, it is a complete dereliction of duty. And I think the thing that we need to understand is that authentic weirdness
does better than structure,
manicured normalcy.
Correct.
If you would like to make your first prediction, you are free to do so.
Absolutely.
It's either a prediction for the future, or you can choose a big moment from last time. We're going to do an alternate draft. We're not snaking because there's only 2 people.
Fair ball.
Not worth it to snake.
So I'm going to go a prediction for 2025, and this is going to tie into some of what you were saying early in like the kind of the intro thing. And yeah. So to bring up David Coleto's 4-quadrant thingy, right? If you notice, there are 32% of Canadians are what he has pegged as economically and culturally mixed, whereas 24% are economically and culturally progressive, 6% are economic conservatives and cultural progressives, 21% are economic progressives and cultural conservatives, which 20% is surprisingly high. Maybe that's just surprising to me as an East Coast kid, but whatever. And then 17%.
Well, no, I think what would actually be surprising is that you would view a lot of things that are, a lot of views that you would consider that you wouldn't necessarily consider culturally conservative would qualify. Gun ownership probably qualifies as a culturally conservative value. I don't know his exact methodology, or gun ownership or support for gun ownership. More of a laissez-faire attitude on abortion. And then some of the trans rights stuff, maybe not being as quite as progressive. Like, we know from the debates over bill or over 713 in Newfoundland, not Newfoundland, in Brunswick. Jesus Christ. Atlantic Canada had some of the highest support for more parental notification than like BC, which isn't the world's most shocking thing in the world. But I think being an East Coaster, being a Newfie, I don't think you would necessarily understand how anti any form of gun ownership like Toronto and Ottawa are.
Yeah, and I guess where you stand depends on where you sit.
Yeah. Yes.
Fair ball. Yeah, fair ball. Just for clarification's sake, I personally am vehemently pro-choice. Gun ownership is actually one that fair enough, right? I'm not opposed to people owning guns, but I am opposed to things like open carry and shit like that.
Yeah. But like, no, you would not understand the hostility of like the concept that you like, that just like the average, not the average person, but like a significantly greater portion of people just like have a rifle in the attic.
Yeah, or in the shed or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's so. And this is part of the reason I want to have you on. I'm very urban suburban, very Laurentian elite, myopic in my viewpoints. I am trying to break some of that.
Well, what a great idea to have a crazy hillbilly like me on.
Anyways, make your prediction.
So let's go back to what I was saying. So 30% of Canadians are in this kind of middle ground. And that's the bread and butter of what any political party needs to get a hold of. Right now, the Conservatives have that on, they've got that on lock, I think it's fair to say. What's going to happen in 2025, and if not in 2025, then at least in 2026, is that they're going to implode on themselves. Here's what I mean. You see Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson is a good petri dish to kind of look at this, right? So Jordan Peterson started out his career as a clinical psychologist, and I might get shot in progressive circles for saying this, but he is a good psychologist. He was a good psychologist in the sense that his 12 rules and stuff like that can be of good assistance to people who are, maybe do not find comfort and solace in the traditional psychotherapy methods employed by a lot of psychologists and stuff like that, but who want to maintain their independence and can help out, right? Like, I've read his book, and if you scratch off his name, the stuff is decent. What's happened with Jordan Peterson since is, like you said, he's gone to Moscow, he's gone on an all-meat diet, he started yelling, like, he reposted this AI thing of like the sperm farm. Like, he's gone loopy. He's gone absolutely ballistic, and he's starting to swallow down. He's in an echo chamber, and he's starting to gobble up his own droppings, right? I think this is a problem that is going to infect the Conservative side a lot more, especially after they win, because I think that what they're going to realize is that people were not voting for them. They were voting against the status quo. They were voting against Trudeau. I think we're already starting to see evidence of that happening in the United States. And I think the thing happening in Canada is going to be a lot more dramatic. It's going to be like a rubber band snapping out, right? I think you're going to see the implosion of the cultural/social conservative movement. You're going to see them become even more detached from reality. And I hope, this is a hope, that they're not going to take the vast majority of Canadians with them. I think that they will. The vast majority of Canadians are going to look at what they're going to do and going to go, holy crap.
So I think look, most recent Abacus poll, Poilievre has a 40% favorable, 40% unfavorable. His numbers are slightly lower in Angus Reid, but Angus Reid doesn't have a neutral option, and a lot of Abacus's neutrals, and this is not just about Poilievre, this is about pretty much everybody. A lot of Abacus's neutrals are Angus Reid's negatives. But about 40-ish% favorables pretty much holds up across the board, right? The Conservatives in this poll are at 45.
Yeah.
And that is with the Liberals basically having given up the last year to not really engage with him. They have done no paid media, right? And Poilievre is still mostly not being treated like a serious contender. And so what's going to end up happening is he's going to have to make choices, and he's going to end up having to make decisions. He's going to have to make decisions in office, because if you're looking at just take one issue, immigration, right? The government, the plans for the government are pretty restrictive. They have finally gotten into a very restrictive place, and the combination of visa expiries And the fact that we're not bringing in significantly more people anymore, there's going to be there should be, as long as we enforce our visa exits, mass emigration in the next couple of years. And that could nominally crater the Canadian economy, right? Mm-hmm. Does Poilievre have the stomach to keep that going? If he's faced with 3/4 as bad economic growth in 2020, in the end of 26, early 27, does he have the stomach?
Who knows, right? And
but he's going to have to make a choice, and he's going to need to, if let's say he keeps St. Paul's at the general election, right? He's going to have to balance the needs of Windsor and Skeena and all of these Northern Ontario, all these working class communities that voted for him in large part because of, or that are about to vote for him because they don't want immigration, they don't want foreign students, and they want, their communities to be more sort of the way they were. How the hell do you balance that against St. Paul's and the Bay Street business community that is going to be pissed as hell if they have an economy that's in basic free fall, and you have stock market plummeting, and you've got, interest rates in the bank is having to do massive interest rate cuts? What's he going to fucking do? And he's going to piss somebody off, because the thing about big tents, right? Every big tent, whether it's the Mulrooney tent, the Diefenbaker tent, they always come undone. Keir Starmer in the UK is a very good equivalent, because when you win solely on other party apathy, the tent will inevitably implode, because there's nothing to actually keep the tent there once hatred of Justin Trudeau falls apart.
Correct. And that's what I think is going to happen, is that the big pole holding the tent up is going to get kicked out. Whether it's kicked out by their membership or whether they own goal themselves, I don't know. That's just my prediction, I think, is that they're going to have the realization that, governing a country that is, for all intents and purposes, 13 distinct cultures, societies with their own different sets of needs, wants, and stuff like that is difficult. And what's good for the goose is not good for the gander.
What happens the first time Poilievre has to suck Quebec's dick?
Right. Well, if he does, if he doesn't, right? The question is, who does he decide to piss off? And judging by his electoral record and the way he kind of goes about his politics, the way he has, he's, pardon the crudeness, but he's, they're on him, and the cultural conservatives and the conservative wing are on they're too busy jacking themselves off to realize, what's actually going on in the world, right? You have Poilievre's on Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson's there doing his thing, and Poilievre's there doing his thing. And the more they do that, the more it's going to be absolutely, one, hilarious to watch, and two, kind of frightening to see just how far they fall as soon as they get into power. Because my prediction is that you're going to have a complete, Trudeau's decline was steady. Poilievre's decline is going to be sudden and painful.
And the other thing, of course, is that Poilievre is probably the most explicitly pro-choice conservative leader in a while, if not ever, right?
Because he has to be, right? Because that's not. I don't know the guy. I don't think Aaron O'Toole ever said on camera in a conservative leadership debate the words "I'm pro-choice." Correct. And I think personally, this is hot take as a liberal, I think if he had, he probably would have won. So I think Poilievre did that on camera just because he's not to sell the enemy short, but he's a clever politician. He knows that there is a pretty fat chunk of the Canadian people who, rightfully so, do not want that can of worms to be open. So he came out and made a deal with, in his eyes, the devil, and said, yeah, I'm pro-choice. Whether that's put in practice, we'll see. What
happens when, because the thing about landslides is they tend to, parties sort of tightly control marginal seat nominations, right? And safe seats, obviously. Yeah. But they're not going to manage a nomination in equivalents to Toronto St. Paul's, right? Seats 200 to 250 on the target on the list, right? And so you're probably going to get a bunch of fucking pro-life, anti-choice nutters through the through the landslide if the Liberals don't get their shit together, which we'll get to. But like at that point, the question then becomes, like, what happens when the pro-life wing and the Campaign Life Coalition, what happens when they start beating down the door and Poilievre has to tell them to go fuck themselves? It was the pro-lifers who got O'Toole out in the first place.
It's either what's either going to happen is he's going to tell them to kick rocks, and it's going to create a snowball effect of people, not the majority of Canadians, but within his own party who are making pressures and stuff like that, or he's going to cave to the pro-lifers, and Canadians are going to turn on him. So I think
even if he can stop the pro-lifers in his party without, like, even if he has to buy them off with something that is an abortion, there will be a political consequence to pay to the rest of the country for bribing them with whatever socially conservative vote or attitude or whatever. Did Justin Thomas really just miss a 2-foot birdie putt? Oh, okay. I'm gonna die. I agree with you on this one. That was gonna be my pick if you didn't take it. I'll take the Freeland resignation. I think when I talked to Coletto, so December 9th, right? I was like pretty sure that I was gonna lose the war internally, right? That I had fought my fight. The party was gonna be morons. We weren't gonna save ourselves, and I was gonna be upset and annoyed about this for years to come. And when he won 25, 30, 35 seats, I was gonna take a massive victory lap in whenever that happened. And then Freeland resigns. And this became real, and this became an option. And a lot of people who had been on the fence about saying it are now supporting him. And frankly, I'll probably just double book this one with a prediction. Justin Trudeau will resign as Liberal leader. But Justin Trudeau will not fight the 2025 election. Because I know I'm cheating. I don't care. I make the rules. It's my own stupid. Okay? But JT won't fight the next election because the Liberal Party, there are too many forces within the Liberal Party that absolutely cannot allow that to happen. For their own sakes, cannot allow it to happen. Because too many caucus members now understand what was self-evident to me after St. Paul's, which is there's no coming back. Right? Yeah. The budget was really the moment when I came to this belief, right? But if the budget was the moment for me because the government did a bunch of things that one generally pulled well in a vacuum. For all the Bay Street Globe and Mail discourse about it, the Gap Gain stuff pulled well, right?
Exactly.
The individual policies oftentimes pulled pretty well, but nobody cared because it was this prime minister and this finance minister delivering it.
Correct.
And the moment that you're there, you need to change either your finance minister or your prime minister because you need to be heard if you want to articulate a message. And the problem was they didn't do it after the budget. They didn't do it after St. Paul's. They wasted all this time. And I honestly thought Trudeau was really going to be able to run the clock out. And then Freeland stepped up to the plate. And I think caucus are giving him through this weekend. But if he doesn't talk on Monday, I'm pretty sure half the cabinet's going to say bye.
And let's say for a second he doesn't. Do you think, and this is not a prediction, but do you think the NDP are going to follow through and call a non-confidence thing?
If Justin Trudeau is still leader and hasn't prorogued, and Parliament comes back on the 27th, yes, but I will look. If Doug Ford goes to an election before the 27th, then I think the NDP, everyone will quietly understand if Parliament basically waits 3 weeks, waits till Ontario's done, and then we do the non-con vote, we do the election. because it's a lot of the same donor bases and it's a lot of the same volunteer bases in Ontario between the PCs, the NDP, and the Liberals and the federal counterparts, right?
Yeah.
But if Ford doesn't go, then yeah, I think the NDP have talked themselves to they haven't given themselves any wiggle room with Justin Trudeau, right? If it's Anita Anand, Mark Carney, whoever the fuck in March, if they do the prorogation, we have a new leader by March 1st and Parliament comes back after March break, maybe. Like they could maybe talk themselves into, well, circumstances have changed. They at least have a right to present a budget, right? They could like wiggle out of it in that way. I think they've been too explicit, too vocal, too clear on Trudeau. And I just don't think they can walk away. And the other thing is, do either of us think Trudeau's polls are going to get any better from here?
No.
Because like if he's still leader on the 27th, like that Angus Reid poll that is like so stunning and has them down 5 compared to the NDP, that's probably going to be the fucking polling average by then.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, do you think Trudeau goes?
Do I think or do I want? The want is yes, absolutely. We were talking like, yeah, he should be gone. Not because just for his own sake. Honest to God, Evan, he should take a break. Will he go? Yes. The question is, yes, he'll go. No, it won't be clean. In the sense that I think that cabinet or caucus is going to have to either do another crazy stunt like they did before with the whole letter or the whole Freeland resignation, or something else is going to happen, like a bunch of resignations or something like that, right? Yes, he's going. Will it be clean? That's up to him.
Yeah, I don't. I think if he was going to cleanly go, we would have seen a signal by now, right? We would have seen somebody talking to somebody, somebody at Jerry Butt's Instagram post. I don't fucking know, something.
Instead, you saw him go on, 22 minutes Mark Rich and
Well, okay. In fairness, they recorded that before the Freeland resignation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just okay. Never mind.
No. Although I will say, it has been reported that he had recorded was it Radio Canada or TVA interview, French language news interview, before the Freeland resignation, that they got, I think it was Radio Canada, to not air because it was no longer timely. For some reason, they didn't stop 22 minutes airing that segment.
Yeah, so to me, I took
weird.
that move as funny as it was. LOL, haha. Mark Kirch and Trudeau are buddies. It's just a well-known fact. Every time he's here in Newfoundland, he's at, they're out kicking around, whatever. I saw him at a bar. Hilarious, right?
And in fairness, like, I don't, I saw people going at Kirch. It's like, guys, if you could get the Prime Minister on your show every, X interval, you'd fucking do it.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. No, this
like I feel like some of the people going at Critch, it's like, I don't know. He's a comedian. Dude, he has a connection to somebody that will get him views and attention. Like,
this is not a dig at Mark Critch. I think he's hilarious.
No, Twitter were being dumb about him.
Twitter's dumb about everything. This is not a dig at Mark Critch. But to me, the sign wasn't Mark Critch doing it. The sign to me was that the Prime Minister / PMO said, waved it through, said, yeah, let's put it on, right? Because that's not what a prime minister who's in the twilight of his days does, right? That's someone who's gearing up to try to curry up some public favor, right? Will it work? It won't work. It's not going to turn polls around. Like and we're kicking the can down the road. Trudeau has to go, must go, will go. Question is it clean or is it not? And I think the clean way to exit is he steps down right away. They put in an interim leader like LeBlanc or Anand or something like that. And then they hold a leadership review before the snow melts, before spring, and then run the clock out, like you said, and go into a fall.
I'd rather him stay as the interim, run a quick and dirty 6-week leadership race. The membership The membership freeze is December 31st. So you've done that. There's no period to sell new ones.
Right.
Or new signups or whatever. You do 2 debates in 2 weeks, just like you rapid fire, you run this contest, voting starts on the 15th of February, done on the 26th. You announce that the weekend of like the 28th, March 1st, March 2nd. Give the new leader 2 weeks to get a cabinet together, get a throne speech going. Parliament comes back like the 17th or week after March break, and you just bribe the NDP and or the Bloc to get you to a vote, to get you through the throne speech, get you to a budget, and then the budget is essentially your election platform, right?
Yep.
That's my idea. That has been my idea this whole time. And it makes the most sense because then you can at least use the throne speech and the budget as both quote unquote governing documents, right?
But it gives them a waypoint. It gives them something to shoot at.
It creates a moment that the government can then use to lay out a new vision, right?
Correct. And I think that sort of that if that's executed in that way or some way or shape or form, a leadership change of any flavor is going to be an issue for Poilievre, right? He's ran on one thing: true to this, true to that, true to liberals, true to mania, wackos, etc. Right? A new leader will be akin to Hannibal crashing over the Alps with his elephants, right? They don't know they wouldn't know what to do, right? And what would happen is, I think, twofold. Two things would happen. Two distinct things might happen, right? One, they are going to go and lick their wounds for a bit and disappear off the public stage. And that's not good. You need to be pressuring at all times to keep, to put pressure on a new leader, one. Or two, what you're going to see, and I think this is the most likely outcome, you're going to see Poilievre's front runners, his stars, like Melissa Lantsman, like Michael Cooper, and like who knows, right, come out, and you're going to see very disorganized, very patchy, very shit comms. Both of those things do well for the Liberals, as long as it's a leader who's distant enough from Trudeau that, Canadians can read, like I said, 32% of Canadians are smack in the middle of the road, that enough of that base can feel like they're getting enough of a change that they can vote for, right?
And the other advantage of this is that you can have Trudeau take deeply unpopular, you can load up a lot of shit onto Trudeau and have a new leader avoid taking certain decisions. You can have Trudeau do all of the sucking up to Trump that you want without any while the next Liberal leader can say, hey, I wasn't the one who went to DC and gave this glowing back rub of how great and amazing the new American president is, because there is going to be a certain amount of debasing themselves that any Canadian PM while Trump is in office has to do that isn't going to work, given that the vast majority of Canadians hate Trump.
Yep.
And the other thing is, the Liberals just need a circuit breaker, right? And a new leader has the ability to be a circuit breaker. And I think you have to take any circuit breaker you can find now. And did you read Mark Carney's op-ed in the Globe this week?
I haven't yet, actually.
It legitimately reads like AI.
Oh,
it legitimately reads like ChatGPT.
So that's not what we need as a Liberal Party, as a country. We don't need. Episode,
we don't need cookie cutter nonsense. It was honestly because I had been saying that I would take Carney, that Trudeau is so bad and so damaging, that I would take Carney. It honestly shook me so badly that I don't know. Carney might actually just be dumb. If he actually wrote that and actually thought that was good enough, he might actually just be stupid. I don't think he is.
Again, where you stand depends on where you sit, right? Carney is a product, like I said, of that 90s, 2000s, 2010s kind of everything was brilliant. Won't call it the Gilded Age, but the sunny ways days, right? He's a product of that. He's a central banker. He doesn't have anything in common with a logger from BC or someone working on a wireline crew in Northern Alberta or a lobster
He also
fisherman in
wasn't
Nova
very
Scotia.
good as a central banker. I would just like to get this take on the record.
Pardon me?
He also wasn't very good as a central banker.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And listen, his job, his role, and his expertise as a central banker is just as critical as the wireline people, the loggers,
No. I think you misheard me. He wasn't good at that job.
Oh, I thought you said he was good.
No. Carney fucking sucked as Bank of Canada governor. He did a good job in 08, 09. He was fucking terrible from 2010 till he took the Bank of England job, and he was eminently mediocre at bad at the Bank of England job. Mike, there are about 36 columns from Stephen Gordon and Mike Moffat in the Maclean's archive that only works about 65% of the time, relentlessly shitting on Carney's decision making, because for 4 fucking years he kept monetary policy too tight in Canada on this vague expectation that inflation was coming, and it never fucking came. He's not good at the job. Fuck Mark Carney.
But I'm taking it you're not backing Mark Carney in an upcoming race.
If it wasn't for the fact that Justin Trudeau sucked this badly, I would honestly devote my entire website to fucking Mark Carney over.
Yeah.
What's your next prediction?
What's my next prediction? Do you want
prediction or story of 2024?
Well, I'm going to plug Newfoundland. It might be a bit early in the episode already, but I'm going to. I think the biggest thing that's happened, one of the bigger things that's happened in this country, it might be unfamiliar to your listeners, is the memorandum of understanding signed between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec regarding development of hydroelectricity on the Churchill River in Labrador.
You finally fucking solved that one, huh?
Finally solved this. Solved is the question. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that we're closer to putting this thing to bed than we were before. Here's why I think this is a big story nationally. And here's why I think it's going to be a bigger one. It might has the potential to be a bigger one in 2025. Little history lesson here. In Newfoundland joined Canada. We joined Confederation in 1949. And basically, as part of that deal, Canada agreed to respect, I think it was a 1923 British Privy Council decision outlining the borders of Labrador, which basically stipulated that Newfoundland, the colony or Dominion of Newfoundland at the time, basically had access to everything east of the Torngat Mountains and the rivers, right? Which is the borders that currently exist between Quebec and Labrador right now. Now, Quebec, being Quebec, has had their whole sovereignty kick, and they've never agreed to this thing. Oh, we got this decision imposed on us and all that stuff, right? Lots of weird shit happened there. Anyways, jump forward a little bit. 1969. Newfoundland was industrially underdeveloped when we joined Canada. We had no large-scale electricity grid. We had no major transportation network besides the railway. We needed to we were 20 years behind the rest of the country in terms of infrastructure, so we brought ourselves forward with a bunch of massive projects, right? Big hydroelectricity, we finished the TCH, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This all cost money, and by 1969, we were broke. We wanted to build a dam in Labrador, the Upper Churchill project, a 2,600 megawatt. A big hydro dam in Churchill Falls. Quebec slipped in and said, all right, we'll cough up the money for this. We'll put up the financial backing for this project if you agree to these stipulated terms of power, right? So basically, we were giving our power to Quebec, selling it for 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour, which in 1969 was cheap. It was a bargain, But what the problem with that contract is that we were locked into it for 75 years until 2041, right? So Quebec naturally didn't need the surplus power, turned around and sold that power to the Americans for 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and has now escalated that to 16, right? So there was this big injustice that was felt between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador that's been going on for the better part of like 60 years now, ever since Confederation, right? Newfoundlanders and Labradorians feel like they've been shortchanged by Quebec, and Quebec wonders why those ungrateful peasants are over there because we paid for, the dam.
And in fairness, Quebec rightly thinks that they should not be, well, somewhat rightly believes they should not be blamed for succoring a stupid government.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's
in fairness,
thing, right?
In fairness, it's not the fault of the good GM that swindles the bad GM, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you're dealing with energy policy is generally
it's a significantly bigger thing than Danny Ainge, stealing Mikhail Prokhorov's draft picks.
Yeah. But this is the funny thing, right? Energy policy and stuff like this generally doesn't grab any headlines. It generally flies under the radar anywhere else in Canada, including Quebec, right? I'm willing to bet if you walk down, St. Catharines, Rue St. Catharines in Montreal and ask somebody, what do you think of the, MOU signed with Newfoundland and Labrador? They wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about. You go down Water Street in St. John's and ask someone like that, they'll get a hold of you for a half hour at the minimum. We're a weird province. Anyways, here's why this was a big story. The MOU was. It showed two things. One, Quebec, the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, came to St. John's and Hydro-Quebec came to St. John's, came to Newfoundland and Labrador to negotiate the deal and also to sign the deal, which I think is big in terms of because in 1969 we went to them, so it was
I was honestly shocked that Legault didn't make you guys trek out to Quebec City.
So exactly right. So they came here. 1, 2, the deal. If you look at the nuts and bolts of it, I'm an engineering student by trade. I've done a lot of work terms in the capital project space. I'm not claiming to be experienced or wise in these things, but I looked at the nitty gritty details of how this thing is going to get built and how this thing is going to kind of work. It's a fair deal. Nobody gets sued. It's not particularly advantageous for Quebec. It's not particularly advantageous for Newfoundland and Labrador. Quebec gets access to relatively cheap and stable hydroelectric power that takes care of their industrial, energy shortage that they're facing, right? Newfoundland gets paid. We get paid. We get access to the labor. We get access to the jobs, and we get a nominal boost to our energy supply as well, right? Everybody wins.
You get this deal done before a potentially significantly more obstructionist PQ government comes in, potentially in 2 years.
Bingo. Exactly. Right?
That is why I'm surprised that the deal was as good as it was for you guys, because as much as Legault holds zero cards, given that he is pulling at 20% and is about to get fucked worse than a white girl on black.com. The thing is, he still had the leverage that you guys needed this shit wrapped up now, because if you try and negotiate with the PQ, their response is going to be no. That's it.
Well, and the other thing too is for Newfoundland and Labrador, it's a nice to have, right? We didn't necessarily we could have sat on and clicked our heels and waited for the deal to wait for the clock to run out, and then when 2041 comes along, we could have easily just been okay, cool, and just rerouted it through the Maritime Link and whatever, right? Quebec was the one who had the fire under their ass right here, right? So I think it was interesting that we had this Quebec, which has I don't know. I'm as Anglo as they come, but it was good to see Quebec acting like a team player,
especially given that we are not going to be seeing much of Quebec as a team player moving forward.
Exactly, but it sets a good precedent, right? I think getting this deal done sets a good precedent going forward. Quebec was a team player. That's a good thing long-term for the country, but also long-term for Quebec. Because you guys, make no mistake about it, you're getting a pretty sweet deal, right? 6 cents per kilowatt hour is what you're buying electricity from the arbitrator from. And you're also getting 400 4,000 extra megawatts of clean, stable power. You're not buying it from Ontario. You're not buying it from the States. You don't have to go flatten half of, northern Quebec to build new hydro dams. It's a good deal for both of us, right? So I think that was one of the biggest things that happened in 2024. Good for Newfoundland and Labrador, good for Quebec, good for the country that two provinces who have historically been at each other's throats were able to bury the hatchet and get a deal done.
And it's especially good because if what I think everyone expects to happen, and I have absolutely no idea whether or not this is just bad political reporting or whether or not this is true, but everybody thinks Pablo Rodriguez is going to be the next Quebec Liberal leader.
Yeah.
I should actually probably ask around and make sure that that's actually like true before I just start blithely assuming that on every podcast and every call. Am I right? But well, no, because like I think I just kind of was like, oh, so he announced he's running, he's gonna win. But like, if I did that about but people did that about Bonnie Crombie, and I spent like 6 months melting down about everyone being dumb. So I should probably like text at least one member of the Quebec Liberal Party before I make that assumption.
Trust but verify.
Yeah. But like, assuming Pablo is the next leader, this is the kind of thing that he can use to argue for the place in Confederation and can argue that the PQ could never have done because they are so dogmatically fixed on the pipe dream of separation, and we need a government that will focus on real issues and real priorities and yada yada yada.
Bingo.
I'm gonna do my third, and then you'll do two coming back around. But honestly, you just talk quite a lot, and
sorry,
I'd like you to rest. No, this is not an apology. That is the nerd shit that I love. I'm extremely happy about that. But I want to let you rest your voice for a minute. I'm gonna make a prediction.
Let's hear it.
NDP lose seats.
Ooh.
Because the thing is, they're absolutely losing a ton of seats at the next election, whether or not they know it or not. Charlie Angus isn't running again in Timmins. I don't remember the guy in Skeena, but he's not running again. And Nathan Cullen just lost his seat, which is Skeena, which was more NDP provincially in Skeena, plus the rural stuff around Skeena. Like, there's no way they're winning that seat again. Carol Hughes in Angola, Manitoulin isn't running again. Mm-hmm. The way that Northern Ontario has been redrawn in the boundary redistribution, because I lost the seat, is not particularly favorable to the NDP, just because that's a place they have a lot of seats. And so they benefited from smaller ridings because you could keep the cities there together. But now you've taken some rural into them, so it makes it a little bit more favorable. Mm-hmm. But like, you've got Windsor West, which could go conservative. London Fanshawe could go conservative. And then a bunch of Vancouver Island is up in the air, right? Rachel Blaney, who I'm not sure if she's running again. In North Island, Powell Rivers in real danger. Courtney Alberni is in real danger. Apologies if I butchered any of these writing names have changed, and I missed that in the redistribution. But like, you're looking at real and substantial swings in these culturally conservative. Like the way I do it is like, more money for my rural hospital. Can we shut the fuck up about trans people? Sort of axis of seats, right? Jagmeet can cosplay as a working class hero all he wants. He wore a Rolex in a video complaining about CEOs raising the prices of apples by 30 cents. Okay, right. He's not your working class hero. He's a fraud. And the thing about the U.S. elections, even the U.K. election last time, the most recent few, this is the part of the global fucking realignment that I have harped on about for 4 fucking years that I feel the most confident in, which is that the Conservatives, we are going to look back and we're going to look at a lot of these Atlantic Canadian seats too, like Sean Fraser's now departed seat, Central Nova. The seat Scott Sims just lost in 2021 was a harbinger, Long Range Mountains. We're going to look at a lot of these more rural seats held by left-wing parties and go, how the fuck did they ever win those in the first place?
Yep.
Because a conservative party that is not going out of its way to talk about, fiscal discipline and cutting spending is going to be a hell of a lot easier for Poilievre to go to Thunder Bay or Oshawa. Oh, they hold Oshawa federally, the Conservatives already. But like Skeena, Kootenay, it's going to be a lot easier to go to these places, Comox, Courtenay, Powell River. It's going to be a lot easier for them to go to these places and say, I understand you. He doesn't. And frankly, he's right. Poilievre is a hell of a lot more comfortable in like the high vis, like orange vest and a hard hat than Jagmeet does.
Yep.
And
even I think even amongst their urban seats, they're going to underperform.
So the second half of this, and you just thank you for bringing it up. I just want to make it quickly and then let you respond. How many times are we going to do the the NDP will win 12 seats in Toronto thing? How many fucking times do we have to do this? Maybe they might win they might win Davenport, they might win Hart Parkdale, they might win one more. Maybe they win Hamilton West. Maybe Joel Harden beats Yasser, but in Ottawa Center. But the NDP, the problem is the NDP aren't even doing well with the voters that they should be doing well with, because they're trying to do this halfway house of supporting the Liberals but also hating the Liberals, and they're kind of pissing off everybody.
Yep.
Which is to say, people who like this Liberal government are mad at the NDP for being as critical of the Liberals as they are, and people who don't like this Liberal government give the NDP no credit for being a different party than the Liberals because they've propped them up for 3 years.
Bingo.
Fuck Jagmeet Singh is my actual fucking point. But if you have anything else to add, please go. Oh, and by the way, Ed Nader-Smith running again in Beaches takes that completely off their target seat board.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And honestly, that could honestly make or break this thing. But they won 25 last time. I don't know how they're winning 25 this time.
No, nor do I. And there's no indication. I think I'll say this, Evan. I think we talked a lot last episode about what we want the Liberal Party to look like. I think I can summarize what I want the Liberal Party to look like. Nothing like the NDP, in the sense that we want to avoid this kind of weird, meandering around aimlessly, yelling at clouds thing that they've done for the past 5 years. Right? We got to have a message. We gotta stick to it, and we got to roll with it, right? And I think I completely agree with you. The NDP are going to underperform. It's going to shock the NDP. It always shocks the NDP. They always wonder why people don't like them, but it's going to shock most people, I think, how badly they perform.
It's become a drinking game at this point, of the number of times I've written this, but the NDP are fundamentally two very different parties stuck together by first past the post, right? It's an urbanite, so extremely socially progressive group. I don't know if you've ever heard me use this analogy before, but in 2021 in Ontario, the provincial NDP leader here gave a TV interview on Power and Politics condemning the Ontario Liberals, because the Ontario Liberals came out and said that unvaccinated teachers, this was 2 weeks before school started, came out and said unvaccinated teachers shouldn't be allowed in classrooms.
Makes sense.
And the Ontario leader came out and said, unvaccinated teachers have charter rights too. And just because the Liberals don't care about those charter rights doesn't mean that we're not going to protect them. Okay? Within 24 hours, she had to apologize and completely change her position, because the socially liberal pro-vaccination viewed the unvaccinated as scum of the earth, not worth protecting wing of her party had a 24-hour long meltdown. And that has encapsulated the problem with the NDP, which is that she was giving an interview as a Hamiltonian and as a union person, knowing that a hell of a lot of union teachers in Thunder Bay and Timmins and Kenora and Windsor and London weren't vaccinated. And the Toronto wing of her party said, fuck you, no. And it's the same thing with the feds.
Exact same thing with the
same
feds.
problem, and it's the same people, and it's the same members versus where you actually win, party membership versus where you actually win your MPs. It's a very different party. And they won't pick a fucking lane.
They'll pretend to, though.
Well, yeah, of course, and they'll do it really badly by having a literal fucking guy who's only comfortable in Henry Ford and Rolexes try and cosplay as a working class hero.
Exactly. Like, to me, like the dichotomy of the NDP is perfectly summed up between Jagmeet Singh, who, funny enough, he grew up and spent his formative years here in St. John's, right? Which is always a bit puzzling to me because it doesn't really feel like it. One. Two, you compare Jagmeet Singh against Charlie Angus, right? And they're two completely different people. They are, right?
Yeah, no, that's the perfect encapsulation.
Yep. Anyways, that's a good prediction, Evan. That's right on the money, I think.
You have two in a row to make, so we can get back on track here. You've got two. So I've made two predictions, and I've talked about one story. You have one story and one prediction, man, already. So you have two of each.
Two of each. Okay. Let's roll with a prediction. This is a big one, and this is way out of my wheelhouse, but
you will have sex for the first time?
I hope.
I will cut that joke if you actually want me to.
No, that's fucking hilarious, Evan. Leave it in.
Okay, good.
I'm not made of sugar. Come on. We're gonna enter a recession.
So us just completely maxing out on population growth to avoid the fact that we've been in a recession for 3 years isn't going to work anymore?
No, I don't think it is. I think we can punt around whether or not it was the right idea or not in future, but I think there's so many pressures pushing us towards that eventuality that it's going to happen, right? The question is, does it happen under the current administration? Does it happen under the new one, right? I'm not going to make any predictions on how it's going to be handled. All I'll just say is that I think it's going to be a hell of a lot more painful than we think, in the sense that I don't think average working Canadians are going to feel that much of a difference. The dent really is going to be taken out against the upper middle class and upper people, right? Because I think the first thing that's going to happen, I think Bay Street's going to get walloped, and I think that if the tariffs come to fruition, then we're going to be up shit creek real soon. I think if we can hope and pray and scheme so it doesn't, but I think we're going to enter some real hard economic times soon. I think lower and middle class Canadians have already entered that phase, but I think now that the funny graphs that are the stock market are going to catch up.
I agree with a lot of that. I think the thing for me is, the big thing is, with the benefit of hindsight, and I'm not claiming that I was right about this at the time, it probably would have been better for us to not try the soft landing.
Oh, yeah?
It probably would have been better if we just said, fuck it, we'll have a recession in 22, 23, and we could then be coming on out of it, because unlike the Americans who have the ability to, mass deficit finance themselves out of a hole without costing their sort of interest rate profile.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We don't have the global reserve currency. We're not the biggest country in the world by economics. We just don't have that ability. And I think us sort of trying to keep up with the Joneses has just delayed economic pain as opposed to avoided that economic pain.
Delayed it, but it's also, I think, to your point there, it's also it's downloaded it. It's delayed it, but it's also downloaded it, right? A lot of people are feeling the pinch.
Well, it also, as much as we love Sean Fraser, the housing minister, Sean Fraser, the immigration minister, That is a legacy that's going to be ripped to shreds. Like the TFW decision has been catastrophic for low and middle income Canadians and has really has made it so that we couldn't replicate the actual best part of the Biden economic legacy, which is to say the immense wage growth in the bottom 20 and 40%. But I think the other sort of point that is salient and relevant is I think even if the Trump tariffs don't come into effect, and I don't think they will, because I think we have enough leverage to stop them, and I don't think Trump actually has the balls for a trade war with Canada. He threatened. Remember, he threatened 25% tariffs against Mexico once and completely gave up on it. I think we can stem. We can stop him for a bit. We can get him to stay his hand for a while. But if you're a multinational, why the fuck would you do business in Canada knowing that at any point Trump might change his mind?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
the uncertainty that Trump is going to impose is going to neuter foreign direct investment and neuter a lot of Canada's growth. Even if he never imposes a tariff in his 4 years, I think the looming threat that he might is going to fuck us terribly.
Yeah, and definitely in terms of foreign investment coming in, it's going to be real tangly to deal with.
I like the prediction. Make your next either prediction or headline of 2024.
Headline of 2024. Let's roll with it. Well, actually, you pinged on this a second. I think that one of the bigger headlines was the suspension of the TFW and the kind of about face that the government made on immigration. It personally surprised me, to be honest, because we've seen this government kind of go full speed ahead and damn the torpedoes a couple times before. To see them reverse was surprising. To see them reverse and clamp down was surprising still. To see them reverse, clamp down, and then go and have the prime minister issue like a 15-minute "here's how we messed up" tour was crazy. That was wild. Did it do him any good? No, but it was that was just weird to me.
The thing about the prime minister is that he's not very smart. Let's look. I've said it before. He's not very smart. He has a massive chip on his shoulder, and he knows he's not Pierre's intellectual equal, and he has had a chip on his shoulder since everybody. Because remember, if you go back to before he died, the brother who died in the snowboarding skiing accident, was always the one that people thought was going to be the political one, right?
All right.
Justin was sort of forced into a life in politics by the combination of bad personal fortune, and frankly, he just was completely bored of doing everything that he had done, right? Like, he had fucked around. He kept trying to go back to school to find something that animated him, and he went to politics because that was the family business. But all of this to say, Trudeau is not very smart. And so when a smart person who is well respected beats a drum long enough, it's not actually that hard to get Trudeau to change his mind. Because he didn't make any decision from a point of like deep principle in the fucking first place. He just listened to whatever set of experts and whatever set of business leaders needed TFWs 2 years ago. And then when people were like, actually, this was bad, he goes, oh, okay, so then do what we need to do to fix it.
Fair point, actually.
This is a government that doesn't have like a fundamental center because we're led by an intellectually uncurious person.
Interesting.
Like, we're not led by, like, the thing about a Freeland government or a Carney government or whatever, and this is true of Stephen Harper too, who was not necessarily like formally educated in a lot of things, but was wonky and nerdish and interested, intellectually curious, is that, any story you hear about those three, about Carney when he was at either the Bank of Canada or Bank of England, Freeland, they would fight you in meetings. And this was definitely true of Pierre, but they would fight you in meetings, right? If you put an argument up in a meeting and he was like, I'm not sure this holds up, they would just go and go and go for hours because they could fight you argument for argument, academic for academic, study for study.
Right.
Justin can't do that. He can't. He's like, you just can't. He could never identify dumb ideas, which is why in the early days he made so much of an effort to not just consult academics on his policies, right? You know, Kevin Milligan and Micah Moffat, I believe, you know, helped do the CCB, helped build the CCB, right? But it's not just, you know, Chrystia Freeland obviously wrote the finance thing. Andrew Leslie helped wrote the defense policy at first, right? He went to all of these experts because he knew he didn't have the heft. But now at this point, he's got his head too far up his ass to realize that he's out of his depth.
Right. He's in.
Which is why the only people left to talk to him are his fucking wedding party.
And look how well they're doing.
I will never stop calling Mark Miller the minister for the wedding party. It's so funny, and I love it so much. It's one of my favorite bits.
It's true. It is true. That's hilarious. Good prediction, Evan. Well done.
That was technically your prediction, or that was technically your headline. I just decided to be an asshole about it and steal it.
No, not an asshole. Listen, dude, one thing you should know. I love it. Shit down my throat. Like, tell me I'm wrong. That's how good conversations start. That was
for sure. And that's honestly, that's why I want to have you on the pod, because you are one of the few people I actually trust to tell me if I'm being an idiot.
And vice versa.
Right. St. Paul's has to be one of the stories of the year.
Yeah.
Right. It was the moment where a lot of we're going to look back at the refusal to do anything after St. Paul's as one of the great failures of this government politically. It was a disaster. It was a 25-point swing. It was the kind of swing that showed that the polls were correct. And the failure of caucus and cabinet to do fucking anything about it was contemptible. And I think very strongly that will be the moment that historians look back and go, how the fuck did they give him another 6 months? Also, that was the night of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
It was.
And obviously, June 24th is Saint-Jean-Baptiste in Quebec, the Fête Nationale. So that was one hell of a night. My favorite part of the entire St. Paul's thing is I tweeted on the 23rd, so the Sunday, that this is how you know I'm confident in the Conservatives winning, because I predicted the Conservatives to win. I wrote a whole column predicting it. But I tweeted, this is how you know I'm confident in the Conservatives. I've already pre-written a column about the Conservatives winning, and I don't have one about the Liberals winning. And that tweet made so many people so fucking mad at me. And I still to this day have no idea why. Do people not understand that reporters and journalists and columnists pre-write columns? Do people genuinely think that like the ESPN Gamer is literally written in the 8 minutes between the conclusion of the game and it going live on ESPN's website? No fucking shit. You pre-write columns, and I didn't think the Liberals were going to win, and I was right.
Yep.
Why did so many people get mad at me about that?
Because people, it's a human psychological trait that people are averse to change, right? Go ahead.
Also, the number of people who tried to convince me that swing doesn't matter in both St. Paul's and in LaSalle, and in what was the Elmwood Transcona, right?
Yeah.
I tweeted Alistair McGregor, who I love, NDP MP for somewhere on Vancouver Island. He tweeted like, "Hey, we won Elmwood, so it doesn't matter." And I just quote tweeted him with, "Can't wait," because those by-elections were a Monday. That Thursday there was a provincial by-election in Ontario. And I just tweeted, "Can't wait for every progressive who claims to not understand how swing works to suddenly understand again when Bobby Conlon gets a 25-point swing in Bay of Quinte." And spoiler alert, she did get the 25-point swing in Bay of Quinte. And spoiler alert, everybody who's like, but the Conservatives lost on Monday was like, what a result for Bonnie Crombie. I can't believe she came so close to winning in Bay of Quinte. Like, that's the funny thing, is it's so blatant how much of hypocrites people are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's the water on the beans, right? People like the sound, not to be too cynical, but people like the sound of their own voice, and they don't like to be proven wrong. And it's being comfortable with being proven wrong is a skill. It's not something you're born with, and I'd encourage people to practice it.
For sure. You have one headline and one prediction left. Also, I am trying to read my chicken scratch handwriting, and enter recession. That's what that says. I'm putting these down, and I honestly could not read my own handwriting there.
I have the exact same issue. Don't you worry.
No, I was trying to do it in a dark room, and I was trying to write these down. I finally turned on the light while you were talking earlier. One prediction and one thing. Go with one of those.
One prediction. So this is, I feel like Mackenzie King here with the crystal ball. I think this is a pretty easy prediction, and I think we've already touched on it already. Actually, no, I'll go with a different one. I'll spice it up a little bit, and this might be a bit of a hot take. I think the Conservatives are going to underperform. They're still going to form a government. They're still going to form a majority, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't know. This is just gut feeling right now. I think they're going to underperform. I think they're going to get a majority, but it's not going to be a super majority like everything's claiming. The race
do you
is not.
Want to put a number on this so I can actually hold you to it?
Sure.
Under 225 seats, would you go under on that? Is that a reasonable number to set the line at?
Yeah, I'd say under 225. Not dramatically, but I'd say probably like 210, 215 is probably what they're going to end up getting.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you think Trudeau is not the leader at the next election, I think that's a good prediction.
That's what I'm assuming.
The leader at the next election, I'm hammering like an over 250.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm for this prediction, I'm assuming that Trudeau is not the leader, right?
I mean, look, if he isn't the leader, like if the caucus and cabinet don't do their jobs, I don't think I'm going to be alive.
Well, we need you alive.
I might actually drink myself to death.
No, now listen, what are we going to do without you?
I mean, who will replace me as being accused of being a Russian puppet? But also,
exactly.
The funny thing about the Russian puppet stuff is that the same, like, I am routinely called like a Russian stooge, but also get bitched at by Bonnie Crombie's people for complaining that she's not left wing enough in the same week. It's so funny to me because it's like I'm insufficiently right wing to the Bonnie people because they're like, why are you so stridently like, why won't you meet us where we need to be to win? And then also I'm a Russian stooge and a fascist.
Yeah.
Like, can you all coordinate your talking points about me, please?
Oh my. That just makes too much sense. No, we don't need to. Keep doing what you're doing, Evan. We need you here. We need you alive. We need you healthy.
Then fucking do your jobs, caucus.
Yeah. I thought you were going to start yelling at me. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, that's the take. There's not much more to it than that. I think they're going to underperform. I think that underperformance is going to really bug them. And that's our first rallying cry, I think, as the Liberal Party, in whatever form we are in, hopefully a strong position post-election, is on day one, they're going to underperform. They're going to be licking their wounds. We need to start hitting them right away. We need to come out of the gate swinging. Whoever this new leader is, I think any Liberal leader who's running for leadership right now needs to go under the assumption that they're going to take the party through the next election, but also the election after that. And I think if we can get on the path and start, launching salvos on day one, we can have a one-term palliative government.
I don't know if we can hold them to one term, but I think there's a significant difference in what Polyev will view as tenable and politically realistic in a 190 seat majority versus a 240 seat majority. Exactly. And I think if you want to protect the legacy of this government and the stuff that this government that is done correctly, we need to limit the number of seats, because the more arrogant, the more vulnerable Polyev feels to public opinion, the more likely he is to hold off on his worst and his caucus's worst instincts.
Correct.
And we need to keep the Liberal Party viable, because if we don't, he is just going to feel like he can do fucking anything.
Yep.
And he will be inoculated from the consequences. And I completely agree. I think I do genuinely believe the caucus are gonna get their shit together and solve it. And I think the big thing for me about the next election is we need a Liberal Party that is willing to listen to people who do not reflexively say nice things about liberals. And yes, I'm talking about myself. I'm also talking about a whole generation. I'm talking about a whole generation of people who feel isolated from the party because they are willing to admit things in public that other people are only willing to say in private. Right. Yep. And I think the next generation of who leads the party just has to be better about, again, look, yes, this is self-serving, but the fact that I have the platform and the existence that I have is testament to the fact that there's an audience, a significant audience for people who are willing to speak hard truths. And the next leadership and the next PMO needs to be more willing to listen to those voices than Katie Telford and co. are currently willing to be.
Correct. And I think this is backed up. If I could just jump in at one more point. I was listening to the Bridge, Peter Mansbridge podcast with Chantal Hébert and Bruce Anderson, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Before you make this point, I am so confused by Bruce Anderson blocking me on Twitter.
Oh.
I usually understand why people don't like me. He is my most confusing Twitter block. Because I love Bruce. I love David Coletto, who used to work with Bruce at Abacus. I've only been nice about Bruce.
That's weird.
I don't understand why he used to follow me. And then he blocked me, and I don't know why. I'm so confused.
Blame
anybody knows Bruce Anderson, please ask for me. I'm so confused.
Yeah, that's
anyways, right. I love Peter. I love Chantal. I love the Bridge. I listen most weeks. Go on, make your point.
Yeah, so I was listening to them, and they were talking about how Chantal Hébert, and I think Bruce was on too, just talking about the mechanics of the Trudeau PMO and how it's kind of operated since day one, right? In the sense that it's kind of been, I forget the exact terminology she used, but they have isolated themselves and basically been the sole decision-making entity within the government, right? They have not sought out expert opinion. Not even expert opinion. They've not sought out the opinions of their own caucus for most of the time the thing has been in government, right? It's kind of like a don't speak unless you're spoken to kind of atmosphere that's taking place in the federal echelons of the party. And I think we can and we should change the way that works in any Liberal government coming forward. Criticism, internal criticism is a blessing. It's a good thing because it's better to be criticized internally and iron out all the kinks before you go public, before you go before the general public, or the media, because the media and the general public will not give you the patience and the time of day that internal critics will, right? The place for criticism, the place for mistakes is behind closed doors. That's the way we're kind of taught to run engineering projects. It's better to bung up and have hard discussions inside before you go to construction, because as soon as, as soon as you go out in the real world, you're gonna the flaws in your plan are gonna be found real fast.
That's true, and I think there's like a very real sense within this PMO that any criticism is treason, right? And it's just so fucking counterproductive because I want the best for the Liberal Party. That is my sole interest in doing this, right?
Yep.
And there is a reason that even when Bonnie Crombie's people hate me for being too mean about it, in their view, too mean about me, there is a reason they read my shit. Because they do genuinely understand and believe me when I tell them that I want what's best for the Liberal Party. This PMO doesn't seem to believe that.
Listen, yeah, exactly, right. Like
they have the thing is, Bonnie's people, they don't have to agree with me, and they often don't, and that's fine. But when I write things about her, I hear about it, and frankly, I'd much rather that. But this PMO has just iced anybody who will tell them that they're in trouble. And spoiler alert, that's why they're as surprised by the events of the last 2 weeks as they are. My last prediction for 2025 is going to be a significant tonal shift away from the sort of social progressivism that we've seen in the in the last like decade, and I think we're going to start to see liberal progressive politicians in Canada and America are going to start pushing back against a lot of the stupider linguistic stuff that we've seen, right? Like obviously I published my piece on the need to embrace a quote unquote frat boy liberalism.
Yeah.
Which I would when you respond to this, I'd like your take on that piece as well as the broader point. But it seems pretty clear to me that progressives are starting to come around and understand that like the politics of 2019 are not the politics of 2025, and the like we can't call people illegal immigrants, we need to call them undocumented. We need to call people unhoused, not homeless, right? Do you this is a fun game. If I gave you the acronym 2S LGBTQIA+, which I believe is the current official Canadian government approved acronym for queer people, could you tell me what every letter of that means?
Oh, let's have a go. Two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, plus.
You missed the Q.
Q? Queer. Oh, shit. Sorry.
Right. Okay. Wow. So you actually did pass, because I've done this with about a half dozen people, and people tap the fuck out after LGBT. Like,
yeah.
And frankly, like, this is the kind of shit that, like, I don't know if you ever, like, I know people in the Ontario Public Service, I use this anecdote in the piece, but like, you have directors and deputy ministers in the Ontario Public Service basically telling white men, you're not getting straight white men, you're not getting promoted. They're literally having to put in their internal sort of portal all of the sort of minority or equity seeking groups. That's the other fun one, right? Equity seeking. What the fuck is an equity seeking group? What the fuck? But we have to use it, and that's politically correct. And now apparently the Ontario Public Service is just demanding that people identify themselves as part of these equity-seeking groups, because basically, unless you check one of those boxes, you're not getting promoted. And if you check the more of those boxes you check, the more that you're going to get promoted. But like, the really funny thing is, talk to like an actual Indigenous person about some of the quote-unquote Indigenous sensitivity trainings, and they think they're fucking stupid as shit.
Yeah, they don't. The vast majority of people don't listen. They don't care, because they'll go to Toronto, or they'll go to Montreal, they'll go to Ottawa, and they'll see all these things and yada 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 yada. But then they go back to their home reservation. They're up north, and they don't have any clean drinking water. So it seems like a much ado about nothing. It seems that there's been more. These initiatives are more about making. I won't use the term virtue signaling because I do know it comes from. I hope, and I personally believe it comes from a good place of trying to make this place work a little bit better for everybody, right?
What does more good for Indigenous communities? Making it so that their homes don't fucking sink into the ground anytime the snow melts, or starting every meeting with or starting every fucking conference call with a land acknowledgement.
Listen, you could do both, but like one is far.
Yeah, but we're doing the second so that we don't have to do the first, and we still feel good about ourselves.
Correct. And I think that center left people are going to have to embrace the fact that it's going to be difficult and expensive to right the wrongs of the past, but it's a hell of a lot more effective to do the former than to just focus on the latter, because the latter. This is not personally how I feel, but I know some people, like, in an attempt to make sure that every voice is heard, it kind of feels like some voices are shoved out of the conversation, which nobody should feel that way. And I know that's not the intention, but focus on the bread and butter.
The thing is, like, you can defend virtue signaling in a vacuum, but the problem is that virtue signaling is often used as an excuse to not actually engage in solutions, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And in those contexts, it is actually actively damaging.
Correct. Exactly. Right. And if anybody for a minute thinks that the Conservative Party are going to, even attempt to keep up a facade of, inclusivity and these sorts of things, you're sadly mistaken. Right. The important thing here is, I think that instead of focusing on these, I won't call them ancillary because I know that, that they are a benefit to some people, but instead of focusing on these things, focus on bread and butter. Make sure, I think blanket terms would work better. Minorities, just say, we're going to make sure that Canada works for all Canadians, including minorities who have been historically disadvantaged. Boom. You've got everybody under one roof. That's fine. Then, you say that, but at the same time, you make sure that everybody can get access to a good job. Everybody gets access to decent public transit. Everybody has a social safety net they can fall back on. Everybody has access to a family.
And by doing it in a broader sense, you don't create the impression that the government is focused on this minority group and that minority group and this and that and that. And there's all these targeted programs for all these different people, but not us.
Exactly. Right. Is that happening? I don't know.
I think that is a legitimate belief. Whether or not I think that's definitely what people believe. Whether it's quote unquote legitimate, who knows? What did you make of the fraud by liberalism piece?
I think it's bang on the money, right? I think that to sum up your article, I think that you and I both believe that the average Canadian is a decent person, and I think that frat boy liberalism, as you've called it, as you coined it, works. I personally wouldn't call it locker room liberalism. I think that if you go play, shinny or beer league or something like that, you hear the banter in the locker room, and what you hear is that people will make the odd off-color joke, but at their core, they're good people, right? We all want the same things, and I think that's a good thing. I think embracing that sort of nitty-gritty center-leftism is a good thing. And will serve not only the party, not only our people, but the country writ large, right? Some of our best triumphs, our best moments have not come from conservative governments. They've not come from conservative policy. They've not come from anything. They've come from big, bold, nation-building, forward-thinking, socially just things, right? Even Brian Mulroney, right? We can debate Brian Mulroney's legacy, but he did play a pretty big part in torpedoing the apartheid regime, right? And that's kind of what we got to go for. Like, we can do great things as a country as long as we get the buy-in from the general public, and we're not getting the buy-in right now. And I think frat boilers room, quote unquote, is one way we can get that. The thing that I sort of keep coming back to, and I agree with all that. And the thing about Mulroney is that he still believed in government's capacity to do big things, even if some of the big things that he wanted to do were not always great. Yeah.
But he at least believed in government's capacity to do big things. The thing for me about sort of the frat boy liberalism and stuff is I don't know if you've ever been in a negotiation or you've been talking to somebody, like it's about whether or not you're trying to get to yes, or whether you're looking for reasons to get to no, or you're trying to look for reasons to get to yes. right?
Correct.
And it sometimes feels like progressives are looking for reasons to kick people out of the tent, as opposed to looking for reasons to get them into the tent.
No,
I don't know how. Like, I think part of the way that you fix that is by acknowledging that it is better for these people to be in the tent imperfectly than to be lost from the tent. Because, again, frankly, if you are the kind of person who, generally believes that, gay marriage is a good thing, has absolutely no problem with homosexuality, not just in an abstract sense, but has legitimately no problem with a gay friend bringing their boyfriend to boys' nights to watch a game or to whatever. Like, if that person has some off-color jokes or is not fully on board with everything, or thinks that, the fact that we changed the fucking national anthem was stupid, which, by the way, it fucking was stupid. Why can't we say it was fucking stupid that we changed it just because Morrill was dying? Okay, that's the only reason we fucking did it, was because Morrill Boulanger was dying and we felt bad. Okay.
Yep.
But, like, we want that person in the tent. It's much better that they're in the tent and are, quote unquote, not pure enough than to have them out of the tent and voting for a party that is going to risk the actual big stuff that we all agree and care about.
Correct. Exactly.
As a minority, not to play the gay card to win the argument, but as a gay person, man, if you don't give a shit, if I swing by with a partner, I don't really give a shit with everything else. Yeah. I'm willing to I will take half a fucking loaf if the half of the loaf I get is that I can be at dinner and I can, hold my partner's hand, or I can, if I show up 5 minutes late, I can kiss them on the cheek, like any fucking straight man would with a girlfriend.
Yep. And
that is the kind of thing where, like, the sort of, like, deification of pride is, I think, like the grand example for me, because, like, fuck pride. Pride is good for a certain kind of queer person. It ain't for us. It ain't for me. And I hate the way that it has sort of, like, been made out that, like, oh, this is the ultimate signal of what it is to support gay people, because no, it's not. And plenty of people think that it's an absurd show, and it's frankly pretty fucking weird in a lot of ways. When you've got the fucking guy in a fucking Speedo walking down Yonge Street, and that's the fucking cover photo on the Star. Like, I understand why people think gay people are weird. Fundamentally, I do. But yeah, so you have one story from 2024 left. So do I. You go first.
I'll go first. I'll just say this. I think I'm related to your last point there a little bit, and not to get biblical on anybody, but as the progressive wing of the only effective progressive party in Canada, we have to embrace the idea of let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Right?
I do appreciate the shade of the BC NDP there.
What can I say?
You're not wrong, but
yeah. Headline from 24. See, it was such a long year that it was kind of hard to nail down one.
If you need me to do mine while you figure out what the fuck yours is going to be, I can.
I've got one. It's going to sound a little bit preachy, but I think it's a good one. I think this is international. The current average global temperature is on track. The numbers haven't been crunched yet, but preliminary calculations show that it's going to be north of 1.5 degrees warmer than 2023. What does that mean? It means that the world is warming. No matter what or how hard we try or what we try doing, it's still heating up. It's going to have an impact on Canada. We're warming at an average rate that's higher than the rest of the world. We're seeing it not only up west with wildfires and stuff like that, and also in Quebec, but also here east. We had pretty fat hurricanes sweep by this year and took out, Port aux Basques and Newfoundland Labrador and made PEI melt into the sea a little bit. And that's a big story. It's going to become a bigger story than just a climate issue, because what we're going to see in 2025, I think, is it's going to start affecting things like, economic policy very heavily, in the sense that we're going to start to see, like, people aren't going to be able to get insurance on their house, and there's going to need to be, more money spent on public infrastructure to make it safe for climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's one of the headlines that we got to shout out in 2024.
I agree with all of that. My response to all of that is, wouldn't it be great if there was a liberal environment minister that could make any of this case?
That's it. Instead of just saying, no more roads.
Stephen Guilbeault, the fact that Justin Trudeau left Stephen Guilbeault in cabinet is a fireable offense. It's absolutely fucking absurd. I am going to make my headline something that was sort of a low burn for a lot of the year, mostly because there are a lot of options, and frankly, I think I just have to stand for this community at this point. The complete and utter failure of basically anybody to properly stand up for the Jewish community, because respectfully, a lot of the conservatives who claim that they're standing up for the Jewish community are not. Okay? Because if your definition of standing up for the Jewish community is standing up for Bibi Netanyahu and pretending that he's done nothing wrong, you're not standing up for the Jewish community.
Correct.
Fundamentally, that belief extends to the idea that, well, if Bibi Netanyahu were to ever do something wrong, then the Jewish community would be to blame. But they're not. What is happening over there, over in the Middle East, is a fucking tragedy. It was a tragedy that however many Israelis died on October 7th. It is a tragedy when any Palestinian dies in Gaza. It is all a fucking travesty. It is not, however, fucking justification to Molotov cocktail a school in Montreal, or to shoot a bullet in a fucking synagogue's door.
Yep.
It is not fucking okay to harass and to threaten and to try and kill Canadian Jews because of an action of a fucking mental case. And I agree that Bibi Netanyahu is a fucking mental case. But it is not okay to bring the politics of the Israeli government to our shores and to have good, honest, hardworking Canadian Jews who have done nothing wrong, who have done nothing to support this war, feel like they are not full and honest Canadians. And I feel so fucking impassioned by this for a very specific reason, which is to say that they have done nothing wrong.
Correct.
It is, I sort of, by the luck of the draw, the people who read my work, the people who I've known over the years, my readership, I think, slightly over indexes on Jews compared to the broader, population. Some of my good friends in Canadian politics and American politics and anything else are Jewish. If you are listening and you are one of those people, I fucking love you guys. And I don't that's always just been like a fucking oddity to me. It's always just like a quirk, a fun fact. Because the notion that they are somehow less than, or the notion that they are somehow different or weird, fuck no. Of course they're not. And this conflict, this decision by people who they have nothing to fucking do with, they don't have any fucking influence. They don't make Bibi Netanyahu be a fucking lunatic. And it kills me that these people are forced into this position and forced to fear for themselves because of the actions of a lunatic conservative 5,000 miles away.
I could not agree with you more.
And the fact, sorry, I just want to make one more one. And the fact that so many fucking quote unquote progressives can't make the very clear distinction that I can make, and that I have made, and I will make as many times as I fucking need to, that Bibi Netanyahu can rot in fucking hell, that he is a horrible person, can go fuck himself, and that also that the average Canadian Jew deserves to live their life in complete safety. The fact that so many people cannot speak with the clarity that this moment demands drives me fucking batshit, as I think you can tell from listening to me for the last however long.
I think your anger is righteous, and I think it's appropriate and it's fitting for the times, because I think that, you know, we as a nation are failing this population who historically has been discriminated against to a high degree. We're seeing openly, you know, we're seeing some crazy stuff go on. Like you said, we're seeing synagogues get shot up in Montreal and firebombed a school. Like, what the, that, yeah, it drives me to no end. And I think I completely agree with you that, like, you know, any death of an innocent civilian, whether it be a Palestinian or an Israeli or Canadian or whatever, is a tragedy and it should be stopped. And I think it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to take some courage for Canada to step up to the plate and say, all right, I think our country will be served by saying, we have no idea how to fix what's going on over in the Middle East. It's a horrible thing to do. Let's make sure that Canada is a safe place for everybody to come, no matter if you are a Jewish Canadian, an Arab Canadian, a Palestinian Canadian, whatever, a Lebanese Canadian. I think the key paradigm shift needs to be from trying to, you know, play both sides in the Middle East, just kind of saying, all right, that's shagged up. Let's make sure that everybody's safe here in Canada. I think that's the paradigm shift that needs to happen.
Yeah. And the fact that, you know, it would be very great if we could all, it would just be great if we could all come to the correct position, which is that we need to separate the questions of foreign policy from the questions of our Jewish brothers and sisters, because it breaks my heart. Yep. It breaks my heart that synagogues and Jewish day schools that I have driven by countless times, it breaks my heart. I'm a child of Montreal, even though I never lived there, and the idea that these places that I have walked by and I have seen and I have, you know, had a meal by, that the people that I love so dearly, the idea that they wouldn't feel safe, just it shatters me. And
correct,
I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't use whatever platform and voice that I have to advocate for their safety, because they are not responsible. They are not responsible for all of this.
Hear, hear.
I don't think there's anything that we didn't cover that we should. Obviously, I'm gonna continue to impose on you every so often to record the podcast.
Happy to be here. I'll be on time next time. I won't have so many bloody errands to run.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up, but anybody who will take the shot that I threw at you earlier in the podcast has a permanent invite. Ben Oates, what's your Twitter at?
Boates02, BOATES 02, and yeah, you can find me there. Find my LinkedIn, find whatever.
Ben Oates, if anybody would like to hire him to some like high paying engineering job, do so. Follow me on Twitter at Scrimshaw, general political writing at scrimshawscripted.substack.com. Become a paid subscriber if you would like to pay me money / fuel my booze addiction, which is not actually an addiction, to be very, very clear. Keep me in rum during a Liberal leadership race, an Ontario election, and a federal election this year. Buy my book, Summation in the Storm, if you give a shit about my fiction writing, which most people don't. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my sports writing, but I am gonna write about sports because like I need to get these takes off. Quick question.
Yeah.
I have not primed you for this in the slightest. Two things. One, the Canadian World Juniors. What was the big crisis for them? But before that, like 2-word answer. Are the Sens back in the playoffs? Yes or no?
Say that again?
The Senators, are they making the playoffs?
Are the Sens making the playoffs? Ooh. Yes.
Because I had been skeptical of them, and then I look at the entire rest of the Eastern Conference, and I'm like, every other team that would take the 8 seed, they all fucking suck.
Yep, I was just gonna say they're only
Like,
getting
Pittsburgh's terrible. Montreal is a year away. The
in.
Rangers are having the season from hell. Like, who the fuck is going to take that spot from us?
Montreal being a year away is very charitable.
Look. Once Lane Hudson understands how to play defense, and they can use some of the money that's being wasted on actually like usable players, I think they'll be fine.
Oh yeah. Listen, like I said, the Habs are not like Liberal Party, right? Like you know they got the talent, you know they got the stuff, you know they got the past glories, but without fail, something always happens and bums it all up. So yeah, that's my take. Yes, Ottawa will get in. How well they do, to be determined. But they got a decent little team, so they'll be all right. Canada in the World Juniors.
In fairness, like the NHL playoffs are just like are essentially just a random like championship generator, like. And and theoretically, Linus Ullmark can be the best goalie in the league for 6 weeks. And if those 6 weeks are April and May, then we could win 2 rounds. And if they're not, then we lose in 5 to whoever. Although Washington, like, isn't the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now, like Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's entirely like if we face Toronto, we can beat them. If we face Washington, we could beat them. Florida's still the best team in the East. IMO.
Yeah, I'd agree
but also, I would like to fuck back and Chuck. So, like, that is my bias. Firmly admitted. World Juniors. Why did Canada fail? Do you have a take?
Listen, I watched all the games. They had a strong showing against Switzerland. I think it was good. Goaltending. The goaltender, I forget his name, but he's young. I think it was his first time in the World Juniors. Like, so the team was very young, very inexperienced. They had a decent showing, but there was clearly a lack of team play in the earlier games. Not just they did manage to get their stuff together towards the end of it, but too little, too late. Just not Canada's year. Let the year pan out, get some more practices in, and get a real strong. We were lacking a kind of a front runner, like a star. Not even star, a leader on the team, right? And like you had Gavin McKenna. I think
yeah.
Like he was good, but I think, and I'm not going to crap on anybody on the team. Like I have a very strict rule. Like if I couldn't do it better than them, I won't comment. All I'll say is that I think he could have stepped forward as being a bit more of a leader and just kind of like driving the team a little bit harder and kind of
honestly, he's not who I have in my crowd. Like, I think it was a management failure. I think they picked a bad team. I think they picked a team that was supposed to quote unquote fit together as a team, as opposed to just picking the most talented guys and letting them figure it out on the ice. I think the Easton Cowan discourse is fucking insane.
Oh yeah.
So fuck Easton Cowan. He's a Leafs prospect. I'm a Sens fan. Fuck him. I don't give a fuck. Fuck the London Knights. Fuck Easton Cowan. I don't give a fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
His discourse is fucking insane. He was one of the few players that has any offensive like verve and pep and creativity. And yes, sometimes you're not going to see you're not going to see the passes. You're going to try and score, and you're going to try and make shit happen. And yes, a very small sample, like a World Juniors, can make you look like crap. Okay.
Yeah.
But the notion that the guy who was trying to make shit happen on a team that couldn't score any fucking goals is the problem? Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. Well, we had good defense, right? The defensive lineup was good. Goaltending was not bad.
Yeah, because we picked like 9 guys who can kill penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but the problem was offense, and I'm
just not going to get mad at the offensive guy for trying to make something happen when we scored like 2 5-on-5 goals all fucking tournament.
Exactly right, and that's it.
Meaningful games,
and that's where I think you could get someone who stepped forward. Like you almost seem like a Tavares type or something like that. Not even Tavares. Like you need someone who'll get in there and just be the. Not the it guy, but the person who's going to go out there and not only like try to make plays happen, which did happen. Like there was people out there, like you said, trying to make plays, trying to make things happen, but who can actually execute and follow through, right?
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, is that like the World Juniors are a kind of a weird tournament. Like the 2 best age eligible players couldn't come for us, right?
Yep,
like
exactly.
Respectfully, Bedard and Celebrini couldn't come.
And that's just the way she goes.
I will say there is a small part of me that wonders why these teams that are dog shit don't let the players go.
Right.
Like, do the Blackhawks really? Well, I mean, I guess the Blackhawks probably do need Bedard, because otherwise, why the fuck would anybody go to a Blackhawks game?
Uh-huh.
But like, I don't know. Look, if you're shit and you're tanking anyways, just let your players play.
Yep.
The fun thing is, like, at least Bedard was on the Halifax team, because that team was fun as shit, right? Like, I'm glad that Halifax and Bedard got the Bedard led team before his draft year, because that team was electric.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know my like favorite World Junior team from when I was growing up?
I don't.
The Eberle with like 6 seconds left team.
Oh yeah,
that was my like real peak of giving a fuck.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That I'm so sad that Eberle wasn't like ever truly good enough in the NHL.
Yeah,
I will love him. He's a Canadian legend forever. And like, obviously the World Juniors have had like a bit of a bad press turn in recent years, given the dual gang rape allegations that Rick Westhead has dutifully reported on. I still love the World Juniors so much. I shouldn't care about a tournament of teenagers, but I fucking do, and it's fucking incredible.
It's good hockey every year. It's good hockey.
Yeah, no, I need to get out to do a 67th game or two before the end of the year. I have no idea if they're even any good this year. Thank Ben Oates. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you, buddy.
Evan Scrimshaw, appreciate you too, man. We'll be talking.